So I'd like to welcome you all to our Tejano virtual events. Today we're going to have a great presentation for you. We have Mr. Eduardo Flores, who's from the First Year Experience Department. He's a counselor. He's going to be here talking to us today about some educational planning. And I also want to let you all know that you do have an opportunity to earn Tejano Passport points for attending this session. So I will be putting the link out into the chat box. So keep an eye out for that. So in the meanwhile, just turn off your mics. And if you just want to sit back and relax, and Mr. Flores, whenever you're ready to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Let me go ahead and get started sharing the presentation. Right. Is my audio good? Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And is the screen showing it's presenting?
It is.
Awesome, wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for having us. My name is Eduardo Flores. I'm a first year counselor for the First Year Experience Center here at the Valle Verde campus, and it's a pleasure being here. And so let's go ahead and begin. Um, I don't have any, I can't see the comments or anything, but I'll let Miss Gail take charge of that. Okay. So anyhow, let's go ahead and begin. So first and foremost, we'll be talking about educational plans. This is what this presentation will be all about, and how we uh, do this for students, the process and what it entails. But first, I'd like to start off with what this first year experience is all about. Certainly, our mission is on a case management approach. So each of us have assigned students. And so the idea is that students have assigned counselor or advisor. So that way they don't repeat themselves, number one. And number two, and most importantly, they have that sense of academic alliance that's built in the first year that's so important, not only for retention purposes, but also for point of contact and engagement. Of course, our vision is to empower these students to take autonomy of their education through our holistic advising approach, which is also proactive, and um, and it includes professional learning communities with faculties as well, and our faculty coaches and our peer academic coaches. Lastly, we do have our goal is to ensure an enriching first year experience that is a strong collaboration between the student. Obviously, it's a student-centered program with their advisors, counselors, and of course, faculty. And so, how does an educational plan fit into all of this? And we begin by explaining, of course, we are under the Instruction and Student Success Division of Dr. Mitchell, and our director is Ms. Lujan, Sandra Lujan. And here is our structure. Certainly, we have our counselors who have experience in crises, or at one point were either social workers, mental health therapists, and or psychologists. In my case, I'm a licensed social worker. And we also have early alerted first year counselors, advisors, excuse me. And these advisors provide support for advising courses and and being a resource. Of course, as counselors, we handle a little bit more of the crises and social emotional support. We also have faculty coaches. They are directly responsible for each individual, like we call them blocks, and they work directly with us and those 30 students that are, or 20 students that are in the classroom. And they all make sure we get an educational plan for them. All right. And then finally, we have our administrative assistant. We can't run our offices without them. And certainly, we have our statistical research analyst who provides all the information to our grant funders and also to the end of term budgeting committees. So the first year experience, this center has multiple components, a multifaceted center. So as I mentioned before, we have our pathway blocks. They eventually will be phased out by the beginning of next year. And we'll just continue having our faculty coaches within their own classes bring the first time in college students to us and refer them to us as much as possible to continue making educational plans for them. Of course, as you may all know, the early alert system is there to provide proactive advising to students that may be having some personal obligations or other things of concern outside of school. So, for instance, one of the things we sometimes see is, unsatisfactory progress or missed last assignment or online inactivity. Or sometimes we even see a drop course. And sometimes that happens, a student will will have a crisis or an incident, and they didn't communicate that to the professor, and the professor's not aware of that, so they get dropped. But that's where we come in and say, hey, what's going on? And a lot of these students, they're first time students, they're not aware that communication is of utmost, it's perhaps the most important thing in higher education. You got to let people know that you're gonna be gone. And so that's what we try to do with the early alert system. And then of course, uh, our other event is Welcome Week and the first year experience, right before school starts. We do have 5 centers across our 5 campuses in Northwest, Mission, Trans Mountain, and Rio Grande. And this is the one here at Valle Verde, the AST building. As you can see, lots of faculty and advisor collaboration going on here with their educational plans. This is for biology, specifically that biology class is coming in just to get all their educational plans. And some are nursing students, some are biology majors, some were just health allied students, and some were not sure yet, but they knew they wanted to do health. Okay. So what is exactly an educational plan, and how do we do this with students and customize it towards their individual needs? First and foremost, um, here at the FYE Center, we ensure that we bridge the students' financial and social realities with their academic goals. So, although we do encourage students to register for full-time status, 12 credit hours per semester, we understand that that's not the reality for a lot of students. And even though it's not the majority of students, it is a substantial number. And so in order to go ahead and bridge those realities with these goals that they have, we create an educational plan with them. And this is usually done in ideally the first or second semester, as some students are still discerning what they're going to major in. And so sometimes an educational plan can be as simple as just the core curriculum, just the 14 credits that are going to be required. However, sometimes that can be a downside because there's students that just will mention, I just want to have my basics. However, if you're into a science pathway, your math basic will differ than if you're in a non-science based pathway. Also, the speech component of the basic could also differ from major. The creative arts can also differ only if you're an arts major, like if the creative arts major. So if you're an art major, you should take art appreciation. If you're a dance major, you should take dance appreciation, music appreciation, and so on and so forth. Language, philosophy, and culture is another basic, and they're all right here. They're all listed right here. And this is another component that is very different based on majors. So for instance, education majors need world history, and that's where that fits into not only their degree plan, but the basics or their core curriculum. Anybody that's in health science or social and behavioral sciences would need ethics, philosophy 2306, in the language, philosophy, and culture component. And so even though everybody needs to English, to histories, to governments, education, language, philosophy, and culture, creative arts, speech, mathematics, social and behavioral sciences, and the two sciences can all differ and go many different ways depending on the major. So when students are not sure, we try to avoid advising towards those classes until they're sure or until they have an idea of what branch or discipline or program of study they're going to go into. Is it science-based? Is it more health science? Is it non-science, or is it social behavioral science? Is it the creative arts and fine arts? What kind of degree is it that they want to pursue? And so, of course, our successful pathway milestones is for students that require the Education 1300, got to take it the first couple of semesters to optimize the most success in the first year. because we know Education 1300 is basically how to be a good college student, right? And so we advise students to please take it the first semester, if not the second. Now, there's a caveat on this. Not every first-time in college student will need to take Education 1300. Sometimes there's students that will pursue a certificate, or they'll pursue an Associate of Applied Science that does not require Education 1300. At that point, it's a student's decision if they want to take that course or not. We generally advise them to take it because it will help them in their career here at the college, even if it's just a certificate. But there's also financial aid ramifications, because if they're under financial aid, they are not eligible to take that course because financial aid will not pay it if it's not in the degree plan. Therefore, it can be a toss-up sometimes. Also, we generally want students, albeit if not, they're not in the certificate or Associate of Applied Science, to complete their college level English in year 1, or their pre-basics, which are the developmental courses, integrated reading and writing 0 through 10, 11 or 12, or the non-college based math 0302, 0324, 0314, or the 0132. And then at the end of the year, we want to make sure our students are in good standing. So we run the end of term processes in the fall and in the spring to see who's in probation and who's in suspension. And then we can go ahead and reorganize this educational plan, because students who are on suspension and sometimes probation, but mostly on suspension, they're limited to 2 classes per semester. So that really changes the landscape and trajectory of their educational pathway. For probation, they are not limited to 2 classes. They can take up to 4, but because they're on probation, some students do not want to risk taking too many classes or even full time. And they want to make sure they pass this next semester to make sure they don't get into suspension. So again, the academic standing, the major, and the kind of career, technical or otherwise, has a lot to do in the formation of this educational plan. Another student population I did not mention that's very important is our ESOL students that receive credit. Our ESOL students receive credit, and it's a 1 year, 1.5 year program of ESOL preparation. And then after that, they can go ahead and go into their desired major. So their educational plan requires 2 pages in a sense, because they're gonna take about 3 years instead of the normal 2 to 3 years. Now, an education plan is usually done through appointment, and the student will come in and we'll have a conversation, and this is where we can explore transferability of courses, transfer options. Where are they wanting to head out to a university or college, or transition into the workforce, etc. And so we start off by the major. So in this case, this is a computer science major. And so their first fall semester, they're going to take the education, English, their pre-calculus, and computer science. Now, in our website, we have majors that have the degree plans, and they actually don't show the prerequisites, for instance, for calculus or for anatomy and physiology. And sometimes that causes confusion between students. They think they can go straight into calculus. However, that's not the case. They do need to take pre-cal 1, pre-cal 2, and then they can get into calculus. And it's very similar to the anatomy and physiology. You have to take intro to biology, and then you can get into anatomy and physiology. It is in the fine print in our website, but as oftentimes, as students, we maybe oversee it. And so the next sequence of the spring, we usually try to keep them in order for not only for guidance purposes, but also for consistency among the learning of the class content. So for instance, here you can see we generated 3 sequences directly. Math 2412 is the sequence. It's pre-calculus 2 from pre-cal 1, Math 1314. And then we have English 1301 to English 1302. And then we have computer science programming 1436 to computer science programming 2, 1437. And so on and so forth. We continue. And so, yeah, we continue with history in the summer. Some students would rather not take summer. Some students only want just one. And then see here in the fall, we have 2413. That's actually the calculus finally after math 2412, pre-cal 2. And then this is computer science 3 programming, federal government, speech, calculus 2, physics, sociology, and government. And then we have physics 2, introduction to, the film appreciation, um, mass media, and the computer science course there. And then they're ready to graduate January 2025. Alrighty. Now, next thing I'm going to show you guys is a little testimonial we had um, for one of our uh, competitions, and we were a finalist. And we'll go ahead and play it now. And this is one of our former students.
Hello, my name is Madeline Corral, and I am representing EPCC as a former student, as EPCC is being recognized as a bellwether college finalist. I began EPCC in the summer 2020 semester. This is in the midst of the pandemic. I had to solely rely on EPCC online advising and instruction. I knew at some point my goal was to transfer to UTEP, but I didn't know what exactly or when. Therefore, that caused a feeling of just being overwhelmed. Thanks to the first year experience, I had the opportunity to be reassured that everything would and will fall into place. My early alert advisor was able to map out all the classes I would take at EPCC and in which order before I would transfer to UTEP. She was able to inform me of when exactly I would have to apply to UTEP and when I would have to request my transcripts to be sent. She even went over the prerequisite requirements required for a physical therapy program and highly advised that I start volunteering or interning with a physical therapist to gain an edge as soon as I was able to do so, since, again, we were in the midst of a pandemic. I'm happy to report that I'm currently volunteering with a couple of physical therapists. I was also informed of the maximum of credits I would be granted at UTEP as a transfer student. Having that to reference was instrumental in feeling informed, empowered, and knowledgeable as a student. I'm happy to report that I transferred to UTEP for fall 2021 semester without any issues. Because I met with an advisor and was led thoroughly with the correct steps to develop a plan, my transfer experience to UTEP was seamless. I felt empowered knowing what questions to ask my UTEP advisor. I just graduated this past semester from EPCC with an associate's degree in multidisciplinary studies. I am enrolled and going to graduate from the University of Texas at El Paso this May 2023 with my bachelor's degree in kinesiology. With this, I am honored and proud to be a part of the first year experience program. I acknowledge my peers and everyone else that has helped me get through this. Thank you.
Alrighty. And that's our presentation for today. And so, what questions or concerns do you have?
I think one of my questions would be, so I'm going to start going to school here at EPCC. How do I get started? What do I do? Do I just go to counseling in general and they'll refer me to FYE or?
Generally, yeah, that's what they'll do. They'll ask you if this is your first time in college, so they can refer a student over here to the first year experience center. But certainly we start off with the Office of Admissions to get our ID number. And then, once we have that, the students can come over and we can see if there's anything on file we can use to advise. For the most part, we use high school transcripts and the TSI or SAT. But certainly, first year experience would be where they need to come.
Okay, thank you so much. And what is a phone number for the? I know you had some of the contact information. What would be a good place if someone's interested in calling? What would be the best number to try?
It would be, I'm gonna write it in the chat, but it would be 915-831-3270. That's our main extension, and it's forwarded to our phones at either center here at the Valle Verde, and so that one always gets an answer.
All right, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? And I'm going to be posting the Tejano passport points in the chat while you're thinking if you have questions.
Is there anything for returning or non-traditional students? Any sort of advising help?
Yeah, so for not returning students or non-traditional students, they're quite different. Non-traditional students means they're not between 18 to 25. So if they're first time in college student ever, they can certainly come here. It doesn't matter age or anything like that. Now, for returning students, they go with counseling. And as far as counseling, they would be provided with, advising pathways. But that's what differentiates a first-year experience center from counseling is we do provide holistic advising and educational plans.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you did mention that you're on all 5 campuses, correct? You said that there's now an office at each campus?
Yes, there's an office at each of the campuses, at Northwest, Rio Grande, Mission, and Trans Mountain, and of course here at VP. VP's our largest.
Okay, awesome. No, thank you so much. It's a really nice service in order to help everyone who's just now in college. How about people who are dual credit? If they've taken a couple of college classes, are they still considered first time in college usually?
Yes, they are. Dual credit and early college high school students are considered first time in college, even though technically they've already taken college courses. But one of the best ways this was explained to me, and I found it helpful, is it's quite literal. If students never attended a college, outside of uh, an agreement with a high school, like early college, dual credit, etc., they're considered first time ever. And so there's students that we serve that have dual credit courses from On-Ramps program from UT Austin, but they're considered first time in college. Or we have early college high school students that just finished their high school diploma and they need a couple of classes to finish their associates. So they'll come here as first time in college because technically they get all that extra support as dual credit and early college high school students. So here it's kind of different, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. So the best bet is you go to your counselor and they'll direct you as to which is the best place for you to go.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And even if we get some students sometimes here that are no longer first year, and so we refer them to counseling. We started referring them as second year counseling, so just for students to get the terminology on, because we have internal terminology and then there's the external one, right? And
Right.
so yeah, we get those students too, and just like counseling and FYE, we work together and we don't exclusively just, I mean, that's the idea, but there's just times when a second year student will pop in and we'll just help them. Or there's times when first year student will come by and they already advised them at counseling. Ideally, it'd be best to just have our populations, but we sometimes have students that, and the customer service element, let's serve them because they're already here in front of us and they've been getting the run around, that kind of thing. So we work closely together to ensure a smooth transition either to or from.
That's awesome. No, thank you. Is there any more questions? So I did put the Tejano. Oh, go ahead, Perla.
Yes, sometimes at Teen Library we receive a student and help them for registrations. And sometimes those students has holes or something that prevent to register. I try to help them and ask at the consular department, but now I see that maybe some of them need to go with you or we need to contact them with the consular department.
Right. So if you get a student and they're trying to register, and for some reason, it says counseling hold or hold restriction. You can ask, just as a student, is this your first semester, second, third? And then if it's the third semester, it's technically the second year. Then we can refer them to counseling. If they're in their first or second, even if they're in the third, you can refer them to the FYE Center. And Ms. Marisol Varela, she's our early alert first year experience advisor over there. She'd take care of that.
Perfect, thank you. Is Marisol Varela?
Yes, Marisol Varela. Yes.
By chance, do you have her extension?
Yes, actually, I'm just looking for it here. Let me find it because I believe, let me see here. Okay, yeah, it's 5068. I'll write it in the chat here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. All right, there you go. Any other questions or comments that I could address, or anything that maybe I missed or something?
Oh, well, thank you so much. This is great. Good information. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us today. And
Oh,
thank
no,
you
thank
to all of you all too. I appreciate you all coming. So next week we're going to have another workshop on Friday, and this time IT is going to be here, and they're going to be talking about the new self-service banner. So we all know that's changed and looks a little different. So they're going to be helping us learn how to use that as well. So thank you again, Mr. Flores. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Sure, thank you. And I will be posting this video to YouTube. So if you think there's someone that you know would benefit from learning more about FYE, please go ahead and direct them over to the EPCC YouTube page. And I thank you all for coming and hope you have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too.